The phone call lasted less than a minute, but it changed the way I saw my sister forever. Her voice was careful, polished, almost rehearsed, as if she had practiced the words before dialing my number. "Please don't come tomorrow," she said. "The judge is elite. His family will be there. I don't want complications." She didn't say my name. She didn't need to. I knew exactly what she meant. I was the complication. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The ceiling fan above me creaked softly, filling the silence she had created. I remembered how that same sister once cried in my arms when she failed her first entrance exam, how I sold my gold bangles without telling anyone so she could pay the fee again. Back then, she had held my hands and promised, when I stand in court one day, "You'll sit in the front row." Now, she wanted me invisible. "I'll understand if you don't come," she added quickly, like an apology wrapped in pride. "It's just different people, different standards, different sister." I swallowed hard and forced my voice to stay calm. "All right," I said, "do well." When the call ended, the room felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone, replaying her words again and again. "Elite, embarrass, don't come." I looked down at my hands. These hands had stitched clothes late into the night, signed loan papers I never read properly, and wiped away tears that weren't even mine. These hands had carried her dreams when mine grew too heavy, but they weren't polished. They weren't elite. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware that something had quietly broken inside a woman who had never asked for credit. I wondered when exactly I had become someone my own sister needed to hide. Was it when I stopped dressing up, when I stopped talking about my past, or when I chose responsibility over recognition? That night, I didn't cry loudly. I cried carefully, silently, the way women do when they've learned that even pain must be dignified. I folded her invitation card and placed it back in the drawer, telling myself I would stay away. Yet somewhere deep inside me, a strange calm settled. Not anger, not bitterness, just a quiet certainty. Sometimes the people who ask you not to show up are the same ones who haven't realized who you really are. And sometimes life prepares a courtroom long before anyone knows who will be called to stand. I told myself I wouldn't go. I even repeated it aloud while tying my shoes, as if the words could anchor me to the floor. But something heavier than pride pulled me forward, something made of years swallowed whole, of silence mistaken for weakness. The courthouse stood tall and indifferent, its stone walls polished by decades of power. I paused at the entrance, watching people walk in with confidence I no longer wore openly. Lawyers in crisp coats, families dressed in their best, all moving as if they belonged. I took a breath and stepped inside anyway. The courtroom smelled of old wood and discipline. Every sound echoed, the shuffle of papers, the low murmur of voices, the measured footsteps of authority. I chose a seat at the back, exactly where invisible people sit. From there, I could see everything without being seen. My sister stood near the front, surrounded by faces that looked nothing like ours. Her posture was perfect, her smile trained. She laughed softly at something the judge's family said, and for a second I almost admired her. Almost, then her eyes swept the room. When she saw me, her smile cracked. Not completely, just enough. Fear replaced confidence, flashing across her face before she turned away as if I were a mistake she could erase by refusing to acknowledge it. I didn't wave. I didn't lower my head. I simply sat still, letting her decide whether I existed or not. The courtroom doors opened again, and a sudden hush fell. Everyone rose as the judge entered. He was taller than I expected, his presence calm but commanding, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and scanned the room. His eyes stopped moving. They landed on me. I felt it immediately, not recognition, not yet, but curiosity sharpened by memory. His gaze lingered, and his brows drew together slightly, as if a name was trying to surface from somewhere deep. Before the clerk could begin, the judge raised his hand. Before we proceed, he said, his voice even, "There is someone present today I need to acknowledge." Whispers rippled through the room. My sister stiffened. The judge stood slowly and looked directly at me. "May I ask you to come forward?" My heart slammed against my ribs. For a moment I didn't move. Every instinct told me to stay seated, to remain small, to protect my sister's fragile illusion. But another instinct, older, stronger, rose within me. I stood. Each step toward the front felt like walking through my own past, the choices, the sacrifices, the quiet exits. I stopped where he indicated, hands steady, chin lifted. The judge's lips curved into a restrained, respectful smile. "Good morning," he said clearly. Then, with a pause that felt deliberate, he added words no one expected. "Good morning, Your Honor." The courtroom froze. The words "Your Honor" didn't just echo in the courtroom, they collided with disbelief, with pride, with years of buried truth. A low murmur spread like a sudden wind, but no one dared speak too loudly. The judge remained standing, his posture firm, his eyes still fixed on me with unmistakable respect. My sister's face drained of color. Her hands clutched the files she had prepared so carefully, as if paper could steady a reality that had slipped beyond her control. She looked from the judge to me, her lips parting slightly, but no sound came out. In that moment, she wasn't an advocate or a future star of the court. She was simply a younger sister realizing how little she truly knew. The judge turned toward the room. "Many of you may be confused," he said calmly. "Allow me to clarify." He gestured toward me. "Years ago, before I presided here, this woman served as a magistrate in a district most of you have never visited. She was known not for ambition, but for integrity. Her judgments were fair, her conduct unshakable." I felt my chest tighten. Those years had faded into memory, packed away like old files no one wanted to reopen. I had never expected them to return like this. She mentored me. The judge continued, at a time when I was uncertain, impatient, and convinced that success mattered more than conscience. She taught me that the law exists to protect the powerless, not to impress the powerful. His voice softened. Then one day, she disappeared. The courtroom leaned in. She resigned without scandal, without explanation. He said, "Some assumed she failed. Others assumed she lacked the strength to rise higher. The truth was simpler and far more honorable." He paused, then looked directly at my sister. She chose family. A sharp breath escaped her lips. Tears filled her eyes, spilling over before she could stop them. She finally understood what her success had been built on: late nights she never saw, sacrifices she never questioned, a silence she mistook for insignificance. I watched from afar as she funded educations she never claimed credit for. The judge said, as she stepped out of the spotlight so others could step into it. The room was silent now, not out of obligation, but reverence. I stood there, exposed yet strangely lighter. For the first time, my story was not whispered or hidden. It was spoken aloud, validated by someone the world already respected. I met my sister's eyes. She tried to speak, to apologize perhaps, but words failed her. I didn't need them. The truth had finally arrived not as revenge, but as recognition, and sometimes that is far more powerful. The courtroom session ended, but the weight of what had been revealed lingered in the air, heavy and undeniable. People stood slowly, whispering with a new kind of respect. No one looked at me with curiosity anymore. They looked with understanding. I stepped back from the front, returning to the seat I had chosen, not because I belonged at the back, but because I no longer needed to prove where I belonged. The judge took his seat again, his expression composed yet warm, as if an old debt of gratitude had finally been acknowledged. My sister remained frozen for several moments after the gavel struck. When she finally turned toward me, the confidence she had worn so carefully that mourning had vanished. Her eyes were red, her shoulders tense, as if the truth had settled on her all at once. Outside the courtroom, the marble hallway felt colder. Footsteps echoed as people passed us, but she didn't move until I did. When she finally caught up, her voice broke before the first word could form. I didn't know. She whispered, "Why didn't you ever tell me who you were?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the child I once protected, not the woman who had asked me to stay away. Because love doesn't list its sacrifices, I said quietly, "It just gives." Tears streamed freely now. I was ashamed. She admitted, her voice shaking, "I thought I needed distance from where we came from to be accepted." I nodded slowly. "I know, and that's what hurt the most." There was no anger left in me, no desire to punish her with silence or pride. The truth had already done what cruelty never could. It had humbled her. It had reminded her that success built on denial is fragile. She reached for my hand, hesitant, as if unsure she still had the right. I let her hold it. That was the moment of revenge, not sharp, not loud, but undeniable. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't defended myself. I had simply existed fully, and the world had corrected its mistake. That day, I didn't reclaim my title. I reclaimed my worth. My sister learned that elite status isn't inherited or displayed, it's earned through character, sacrifice, and humility. And I learned that shrinking yourself for someone else's comfort only delays the truth. As I walked away from the courthouse, the sun felt warmer than it had in years. I wasn't walking out as a former judge, a forgotten supporter, or an embarrassment. I was walking out as myself, and sometimes that is the sweetest justice of all.